Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. The Star Wars show that is being produced by Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslye Headland, and is known as The Acolyte, is reportedly going to be released on Disney streaming service Disney Plus on June 5th of this year, as I had talked about in a video that I had released on February 23rd. In a statement, Disney has neither confirmed nor denied that release date, which personally suggests to me that it's probably correct, and I will reveal why I believe that towards the end of this video. But how much do we actually know about The Acolyte? Very little information about this forthcoming streaming disaster has been released as of the time that I am recording this video. In fact, a trailer for the show has yet to be released, and that fact, along with a few others, tends to suggest that the show may still be in post-production with a release date that's barely 3 months away. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please subscribe to this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! To begin to answer the question, what's The Acolyte going to be about, let's begin by looking at an article from the Nerdist website that was published on February 27th entitled, Star Wars The Acolyte Teases Timeline and Story Details. And we'll start from the article's second paragraph. Speaking to C Magazine, star Amanda Stenberg shared a little bit more about the setting, context, and story of The Acolyte. The publication notes, quote, what she can say is that it takes place in the High Republic era before Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace, which was released in 1999 and grossed just shy of $1 billion worldwide. It's a prequel to the prequels, if you like. Lucas famously started his epic tale in 1977 on Episode 4, A New Hope, unquote. And this is what I have been saying in recent videos about The Acolyte, that it's based on an era in the Star Wars universe that Lucasfilm, under Kathleen Kennedy, has dubbed the High Republic. This is not based on something that was originally envisioned by Star Wars creator George Lucas. But under Disney and Lucasfilm, a series of officially sanctioned Star Wars books had begun to be released that occurred during the High Republic era. But unfortunately for Disney, Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy, hardly anyone is interested in these books as their sales essentially number in the thousands, as I have talked about in previous videos, including one that I had released last year in which I emphatically stated that Star Wars as a franchise is dead. But let's go on with the article. More specifically, Stenberg revealed, quote, in the context of the Star Wars universe, it's a time of great peace, theoretically. It's also a time of an institution, and it's a time in which conceptions about the Force are very strict. So I'm going to assume that what she means by an institution is the Jedi Order as headquartered on the planet of Coruscant at the Jedi Temple, which we know about from George Lucas's prequel trilogy movies. And I think that what we're trying to explore within our show is when an institution has a singular conception of how power can be used, we try to provide a lot of different perspectives and answers to that question. The idea is to kind of honor the ethos of Star Wars and ideas around the Force and also challenge them, hopefully harmoniously, unquote. Now, were this show being produced by people who actually cared about Star Wars lore and its mythos as created by George Lucas, then I'd actually probably want to watch this show. But what Kathleen Kennedy has done since she became Lucasfilm president under Disney is to undermine everything that George Lucas created, which is hardly harmonious. And this show will likely be no different. When Kathleen Kennedy officially announced the series back in December of 2020, we got this official synopsis. The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark-side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. A former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated. Since that time, we've learned that the drama unfolds about a century before the events of The Phantom Menace, during a time when the Sith were still in hiding, getting ready to make their move to take over the galaxy. Aside from canon novels, the High Republic is an era totally unexplored in any live-action or animated Star Wars projects. This time frame strongly suggests that characters such as Yoda should be in the show given how long he was in the Jedi Order, around 800 years based on the character's comments in George Lucas's original trilogy movie, Star Wars V: The Empire Strikes Back. But it's currently unclear whether Yoda will make an appearance. We'll go down to this paragraph that lists the cast for the show. Playing the lead role in the show is Amandla Stenberg. Joining her are Lee Jung-jae, Manny Jacinto, Daphne Keane, Jodie Turner-Smith,
yes,
Rebecca Henderson, Charlie Barnett, Dean Charles Chapman, Carrie Ann Moss, Margarita LaViva, and Junice Suotamo. Suotamo is playing a Wookiee, and Henderson will portray Vernestra Rwoh, who is a High Republic character and was, according to the High Republic books, one of the youngest ever to become a Jedi Knight. Of course, we'll see her much older in this Star Wars series. Here's what this suggests to me. Since the character Vernestra Rwoh is a female character and the actress playing her, Rebecca Henderson, is currently 43 years old, I strongly suspect that she is going to be a representation of the authority of the Jedi Order in The Acolyte. And who knows, given how female-centric this series is going to be, maybe the entire Jedi Council will be portrayed in The Acolyte as being all-female or nearly all-female. Now, I'm not saying that it will be, but don't be shocked if that occurs because in George Lucas's prequel movies, the Jedi Council was predominantly male. And since the Republic fell to the dark side of the Force during a period when the Jedi Council was predominantly male, maybe The Acolyte is going to show a much happier time in the Star Wars universe when it was female-centric. And we know that The Acolyte is going to be a female-centric show. All we have to do is to watch more of Jodie Turner-Smith's appearance at the European Star Wars Celebration last year.
So my character, she's a powerful leader. Yes. In a very woman-centered world, which I was very excited to kind of be in that, because I feel like Star Wars is very like patriarchal, so it was kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
We also have this 2020 article from Variety explaining that the show is female-centric. A new Star Wars series is in the works at Disney+, Variety has learned from sources. The series hails from Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslye Headland, the co-creator, showrunner, and executive producer of the critically acclaimed Netflix series, Russian Doll. Details of the exact plot of the series are being kept under wraps, but sources say it will be a female-centric series that takes place in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects. Hedland is said to be attached to write and serve as showrunner on the series, with the show currently staffing. And what do we know about Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslye Headland? An interview with Hedland appeared in an article posted by the AV Club in June 2021, and here are some things that Hedland had to say. My relationship with Star Wars probably runs the span of most of my life, and it has changed over the decades. When I was younger, I devoured the films on home video and absolutely loved them. Just a deep connection to the original trilogy. When I was in middle school, I read some novels like Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire and also got into it that way. So initially, she portrays herself as a normal fan of the Star Wars franchise from her early experiences with the series. Star Wars was this anchoring thing that made me happy, which led to me incorporating it into a lot of my writing when I was little. I guess now you would call it fan fiction. So she claims that she wrote Star Wars fan fiction when she was young. But back in my day, I wasn't allowed to go on LiveJournal and whatever was up at the time. I was just writing it myself, and it was this beautiful way to escape what was going on in my life. And I absolutely adored it. I loved every aspect of it, from the world building and Ralph McQuarrie's production design to the hero's journey of it all, Luke's arc, and what that meant. The image that always hits me is from Return of the Jedi, when Luke is calling out to his father and Vader is looking back and forth between the Emperor and his son, and you can't see his face. Even to this day, I get chills thinking about it. It had this huge effect on me. And again, for most people, Star Wars is an escape from the real world, which is what Hedland is expressing here and sounds rather normal. I enjoyed the prequels, but didn't feel the same kind of kinship to them as I did the original trilogy. I was older, I was moving into college and getting into theater. I was moving in this different direction. This is where things in this interview begin to change. To me, Star Wars has always been a little bit of a Rorschach test of a piece of art. A lot of times, it is what you decide it is. While it's certainly true that different people interpret art differently, to say that Star Wars is merely what you decide it is to deny the intent of George Lucas and everyone who helped to create Star Wars before Disney bought it. This is Hedland saying, I'm going to view Star Wars how I want to see it, not how it was actually created and intended to be viewed. And what this further means is that she believes that she can do whatever she wants to Star Wars. You have fans that really run the gamut in terms of their political and social identities, and yet it's still a piece of art that really speaks to people on a very base level. So to me, seeing a fandom as passionate about Star Wars, it's certainly intimidating, but it's also understandable, because it's a great work of art. But does she even respect the fandom? And to be part of it is, yeah, it's daunting, but it's also something that if I didn't feel passionate about my love for it, then possibly it would be something that was too frustrating or scary. But because I feel so passionate about it, I know that my love of it is rooted in a strong point of view. Now, that last statement is a very peculiar thing to say. First, she's talking about the fandom at large and her own passion for Star Wars, but then she makes a non sequitur by saying that her passion is rooted in her own personally strong point of view. And that really doesn't make much sense within that context, but it does with her earlier statement that as a piece of art, Star Wars is what you decide it is. So not only does she have her own very personal interpretation of what Star Wars is, it's a very strong point of view that implies inflexibility. Now we're beginning to see the edges of her holier-than-thou Hollywood elitist mindset as this interview continued and became a lot more interesting and revealing. The next question that the interviewer asked Hedland is this. When you have queer people making anything, it creates a certain anticipation for more meaningful representation. How do you balance making your story more inclusive while also just kind of keeping in mind the considerable history involved? And here's Hedland's response. As somebody that is lesbian, every time I see gay or queer representation in media, I scream with happiness. To have the power, when you're creating media, to just put in certain types of people that maybe aren't necessarily in normal mainstream content or media is just, I know that for people who don't identify that way, it doesn't seem that important, but to us, it's huge. In other words, for Hedland, the Acolyte is nothing more than a vehicle to have LGBTQ characters and content appear in Star Wars, regardless of what the fandom at large wants to see, because her strong and inflexible point of view is far more important, as is the goal of the woke identity politics ideology, to ensure that every movie and TV show is filled with and focuses on the singularly important topics of representation and inclusion of marginalized groups over and above the far less important aspect of good storytelling or appealing to the predominantly male and predominantly straight audience. So Disney and LucasFilm are spending probably over $100 million to produce the female-centric and possibly lesbian-centric Star Wars show The Acolyte for a niche audience that isn't going to cover the expensive production costs when it's all said and done.
Yes, yes.
But let's see what else Hedland had to say herself. When I look back at the way that I consumed Star Wars and the types of characters that I gravitated toward and wrote fan fiction about or identified with, could they be seen as gay or queer characters? Probably. I mean, one of the things we did in our writer's room to kind of break the ice was ask who's your favorite Star Wars character. And you could tell that people, when I said mine, they were like, yeah, well, you're gay. That's because you're gay. But it's true. So Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant Leslye Headland's favorite Star Wars character is gay, which might be Captain Phasma from the sequel trilogy. Let's see what else she had to say. Media representation is wildly important. She then went on to say, because I think that's really where you see real change occur, and the real seismic shift in culture. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen of the audience who are watching this video. Given everything that Hedland said in this interview back in 2021, which was only 5 months after Bob Iger told Disney employees that the Disney culture had to become even more woke than it already was at the time, As I had talked about in a video that I had released on February 15th, I think it's very safe to say that The Acolyte is going to be an incredibly woke female and LGBTQ-centric series. And that conclusion is based on Hedland's own words, not mine. There are other things that we could explore in this video, but the reality is that everything else that's known about what's been going on behind the scenes for the upcoming Disney Plus Star Wars series The Acolyte only further demonstrates that it's going to be a woke female and LGBTQ-centric series. Given that the Star Wars fandom has always traditionally been predominantly male and straight, Kathleen Kennedy's efforts to destroy the underlying mythos of Star Wars in an effort to bolster the importance of her self-insert strong woman Mary Sue Ray Palpatine character in the abysmal sequel trilogy movies, combined with her increasingly female-centric Disney Plus shows, is what ultimately killed the Star Wars franchise by continually shrinking the fandom and making the franchise financially unsustainable. This show, which is far more woke than merely being radically feminist, is very likely going to have a minuscule audience at best, as I have attested to in previous videos, in which I show how much interest there is using Google Trends. And I strongly suspect that the show's reported June 5th release date has to do with June being Gay Pride Month. If Disney and Lucasfilm want to continue to spend hundreds of millions of dollars producing overly woke content that hardly anyone is interested in watching, due to the emphasis on pushing the message, that's their choice, just as it's the choice of potential viewers to tune out. Bob Iger pushed the Disney company into becoming very woke in 2021, as that leaked video attests to, but he then decided to completely remove the utterly rejected very woke Willow show from Disney Plus to use as a tax write-off in 2023. Perhaps that will be the same ultimate fate of The Acolyte in early 2025, to become another tax write-off. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.